Part 1. The Letter. 5000 characters. The wind howled through the trees as Emma stood at the edge of the driveway, staring up at the house she hadn't seen in over 15 years. It looked smaller now. The once white paint had faded to a tired gray, and ivy crawled up the sides like nature was slowly swallowing it whole. She clutched the keys tighter in her hand, the metal biting into her palm. She hadn't come back for the funeral. That was 2 weeks ago. The lawyer's letter had arrived yesterday, simple and stark. Your father left behind a personal letter for you, to be read upon your return to the family home. There was no apology. No, I miss you. Just a cold instruction from a man who'd barely spoken to her since her mother died. Emma pushed open the creaking front door. The familiar smell hit her immediately. Old wood, dust, and a hint of lavender. Her mother used to light those candles every evening after dinner. For a second, she felt 8 years old again, barefoot on the kitchen tiles, listening to her parents argue in hushed voices behind closed doors. She exhaled and stepped inside. The house hadn't changed much. The photos on the wall were the same. Emma in pigtails, her brother Daniel grinning with his missing front teeth, their mother's soft eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses. The only photo of their father showed him stiff and unsmiling, like he never quite fit into the frame. The letter was waiting for her on the kitchen table, sealed in a yellowed envelope. Her name, Emma Grace Holloway, written in her father's precise, architectural script. He used to draw like that. Houses, bridges, entire cities. But not for years. She hesitated before opening it, hands trembling slightly. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. You and we had our differences, and for that I carry more regret than I ever showed. But there's something you need to know. Something your mother kept from you. Something I kept buried, out of love and maybe cowardice. Go to the basement. In the back corner under the old tarp, there's a trunk. The key is inside the drawer in my study. It's time you knew the truth about our family, about her, and about me. I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to show it. Dad. Emma read the letter twice before folding it back into the envelope. Her heart beat faster than she wanted to admit. Truth? What truth? Her mother had died of cancer when Emma was 19. Her father had withdrawn after that, growing more distant each year until their phone calls dwindled to awkward once-a-year exchanges. The study was just as she remembered. Books lined the walls, dust coating everything. The key was easy to find. Top drawer, beneath a rusted compass and a faded photo of her parents on their wedding day. In the basement, the air was cool and damp. She had to use her phone flashlight to see. The trunk was exactly where the letter said it would be. Large, metal, and heavy with time. She inserted the key, heart pounding. The lock clicked open. Inside were layers of papers, envelopes, and old photographs bundled in rubber bands. There was a small box on top labeled 1977. She opened it, revealing a stack of love letters, written in her mother's handwriting, but not addressed to her father. The name on every envelope was Mark. Emma sat on the concrete floor, confusion swirling into something darker. She picked up a photo. It was her mother, laughing in a field of wildflowers, with a man Emma didn't recognize. He looked like her father, but younger, softer. And in her mother's arms, a baby. She turned the photo over. In blue ink, her mother had written, Me, Mark, and little Emma. Summer 92. Emma's breath caught. Mark, her father's brother? The man she barely remembered. Always a strange presence at holidays. Then gone completely by the time she turned 10? Everything twisted inside her. The trunk held more birth certificates, letters, journal entries. It was a map to a life she never knew existed. And somewhere beneath it all, she knew. Her family was not what she thought. Emma stood up, legs shaking. The basement suddenly felt too small. She had come home to say goodbye. Now she was facing a question that changed everything. Who was her real father? Part 2. The basement. 5000 characters. Emma couldn't sleep. The photos, the letters, the box labeled 1977. They replayed over and over in her mind like an unsolvable riddle. The house was quiet, too quiet, filled with the echoes of a life she didn't understand anymore. She sat at the kitchen table long past midnight, a single bulb casting sharp shadows around her. The box lay beside her, opened and raw, like a wound in the center of her childhood home. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up another letter. This one dated March 3, 1991. Her mother's handwriting, elegant and clean, filled the page. Mark, I can't keep doing this. Every time I look at her, I feel both joy and shame. How do you love a child who reminds you of everything you can't have? You should have been there yesterday. She took her first steps, right into Richard's arms. He doesn't know, of course. He never will. Please don't come around anymore. It's too painful. For all of us. Emma dropped the letter like it had burned her skin. Her mother's words echoed in her ears. He never will. Had her father known the truth all along? And why had Mark disappeared from their lives without a word? She went back to the basement the next morning, this time with gloves, notebooks, and a fierce determination to find answers. The trunk was heavier than she remembered. Beneath the old letters was a stack of documents. Tax records, medical bills, even court forms. One of them caught her eye, an unsigned custody agreement draft, with Mark Holloway's name typed at the top. Custody? Of who? Me? Tucked between two folders was a grainy black and white ultrasound photo. The date? December 1991. She did the math. That would have been around the time she was conceived. Her fingers brushed over a faded manila envelope labeled, "Do not destroy." Inside was a single sheet of paper, a paternity test request form. Never submitted, never filled in. She stared at it for a long moment. Then, from beneath the pile, she pulled out something that nearly made her drop everything. A cassette tape in a plastic case. A label in her father's handwriting said, simply, "Emma, for when you're ready." She hadn't seen a cassette player in years. But this house, this time capsule, probably had one. She tore through the living room cabinets until she found the old stereo system, coated in dust. After a few tries and a bang on the side, the player whirred to life. She inserted the tape, pressed play. Her father's voice crackled through the speakers. "Emma, I don't know if you'll ever hear this. If you do, it means I didn't get the chance to explain things to you face to face. So I'm doing what I always do, hiding behind blueprints and planning everything like it's a project I can fix. But people aren't buildings. I knew about Mark. I knew about your mother. For years. She loved him. I think part of her always did. I hated him for it. I hated myself for staying. But I loved you too much to leave. And in the end, maybe that's the only thing I got right." Emma sat frozen. Her whole life had been built on a lie or a compromise. Her parents' marriage was a house held together by silent choices, cemented with denial. And she was the beam in the center of it all. Her father's voice continued. "I forgave her, not all at once, but I did. And when Mark left, it wasn't because he gave up. It was because I asked him to go. For you. I couldn't raise another man's daughter. But I couldn't let you go either. So I made a choice. I raised you as my own. I tried to be a father the best I could. I know I failed more than I succeeded. But please believe this. Everything I ever did, I did because I loved you." The tape clicked off. Emma sat back in the dusty chair, her eyes welling up. All this time, she thought her father had been cold, distant, unreachable. But maybe he was just human, wounded, trying to survive. Her mind kept circling back to Mark. Where was he now? Why hadn't he ever reached out? Did he even know she was here? She picked up her phone and opened a browser window. Mark Holloway wasn't an uncommon name, but she tried combining it with their hometown. Nothing. Then she searched Mark Holloway, Architect, Colorado, remembering that he and her father once worked at the same firm. One result stood out. Mark Holloway, retired architect, Aspen, Colorado. A photo showed an older man with familiar features, deep-set eyes, a slight tilt of the head just like hers. Her heart thudded in her chest. She wrote down the address. Tomorrow she would drive there. She needed answers only he could give. But more than that, she needed to know if he looked at her the way her father never did. Like he saw something of himself reflected back. Part 3. The Truth About Mark. 5000 characters. The drive to Aspen took nearly 5 hours, winding through golden plains and pine-lined mountains. Emma barely noticed the scenery. Her thoughts were spinning, tangled between anger, curiosity, and the strange ache of something that felt dangerously close to hope. What if he looked like her? What if he denied everything? What if he told her more than she was ready to hear? Mark Holloway lived in a modest cabin tucked at the edge of a quiet forest, far from the busy ski resorts. His house was simple but tidy, with a wraparound porch and a garden that looked well-loved. A bike leaned against the railing, and wind chimes tinkled softly in the breeze. Emma sat in her car for a full 10 minutes before forcing herself to get out. Her legs felt numb. Her hand hovered over the doorbell. She rang it once. A few seconds passed. Then the door opened. He looked older than she remembered. His hair had turned fully gray, and a long scar curved along the side of his cheek, half hidden beneath his beard. But his eyes, hazel and sharp, were unmistakably familiar. Mark stared at her for a long moment. Then his face changed. "Emma?" he said softly, almost like a breath. "You came." She hadn't expected that. He stepped aside without asking why she was there. They sat in his kitchen, a quiet room filled with old photos and sketches. The kettle whistled. Emma's hands wrapped around a chipped mug, the warmth grounding her. She finally spoke. "Why didn't you ever reach out?" Mark exhaled. "Because I was told not to, and because I didn't want to make your life harder than it already was. You just disappeared. I didn't want to, but your father, Richard, he was a proud man, and I owed him more than I ever admitted. He raised you, Emma, loved you the best he could. I couldn't compete with that. I couldn't destroy what he was trying to protect." Emma frowned. Protect? Or control? Mark looked her in the eyes. Both. Silence filled the space between them. Then he stood up and pulled a photo from a drawer. It was the same one Emma had seen in the basement. Her mother, Mark, and baby Emma. He handed it to her like an offering. "She wanted to leave with me once. We even packed the car. But at the last moment, she changed her mind. Said you deserved a normal life. A stable one. She thought Richard could give you that." "But it wasn't normal," Emma whispered. They barely spoke. She cried in secret. He shut down. "And I always felt like something was missing." Mark's jaw tightened. "I would have loved you, Emma. I did. I still do. Every birthday, every Christmas, I thought of you. I wanted to call, to write. But I couldn't be the one to tear apart your world just to satisfy my guilt." She stared at him. "You're saying I meant something to you? But you chose silence." "I chose not to break you." Emma felt her chest tighten. 1,000 questions hovered on her tongue, but none of them came out. Mark pulled out another envelope. "Your mother wrote this. She asked me to give it to you if you ever found your way to me. I've kept it all these years." Emma hesitated, then took it. "My sweet girl, if you're reading this, it means the truth has started to unravel. I hope you're old enough to understand that sometimes love is not simple. Sometimes it's messy and selfish and impossible. I loved both of them. That's the hardest thing to admit." Mark was passion, fire, dreams. Richard was steadiness, structure, safety. I chose safety for you, and I paid for it in silence. But please know you were always loved. By both of them, in different ways. If you ever find Mark, forgive him. Forgive me, and live your truth. Not the one we built for you. Love, Mom. Emma's throat burned. She folded the letter slowly, her fingers trembling. Mark placed a hand on the table but didn't touch her. "You deserved better than what we gave you. But I never stopped being proud of you. I don't even know who I am anymore," Emma whispered. "You're the best parts of both of them," Mark said. "But more importantly, you're you. And that's enough." They sat in silence after that. No dramatic hacks. No instant healing. just the fragile start of something that had long been buried beneath years of pain. When Emma stood to leave, Mark didn't try to stop her. But before she reached the door, he said, "You have a sister." Emma froze. "What?" "Her name is Lucy. She's mine. Your mother and I." Before she went back to Richard, "Lucy was born a year after you. She ended up in foster care. I didn't find out until it was too late." Emma's stomach dropped. "She's in Denver now. She doesn't know about you. Or your mother. She deserves to." Emma nodded slowly. "Give me her address." Because whatever her past had been, she wasn't going to keep burying the truth. She was going to face it. Part 4. The family she never knew. The Denver address led Emma to a quiet neighborhood of modest duplexes and sun-bleached fences. The mailbox read L. Owens. Lucy Owens. That was her. Her sister. Emma sat in the rental car, gripping the steering wheel like it might fly out of her hands. She'd rehearsed what to say 100 times on the drive. But now, parked outside the stranger's home, her mind was blank. She had a sister who grew up in foster care, a sister who never had the chance to know their mother. Or Mark. Or her. Was it fair to show up now and ruin her peace? But wasn't that what her whole life had become? Peeling back one truth at a time, no matter how much it hurt? She stepped out of the car. The porch creaked as she walked up the steps. She rang the bell. Footsteps. Then the door opened. The woman who stood in front of her looked like someone Emma might have passed in a coffee shop without a second glance. Except for the eyes. Hazel. Familiar. Her own. "Hi," Emma said, her voice catching. "Are you Lucy?" The woman narrowed her eyes, suspicious. "Yeah. Who's asking?" "My name is Emma Holloway. I think we're sisters." Silence. Then a laugh. Short. Disbelieving. "What?" Emma held out the letter from Mark, along with a photo of their mother. "I know how this sounds, but I just found out myself. Your father is Mark Holloway. My biological father, too." Lucy stared at the photo. Her hand trembled slightly as she took it. "I don't have a mother," she said flatly. "She left me at a hospital when I was 2. That's all I know." "She didn't leave you," Emma said quickly. "It's more complicated than that. She thought you'd be better off without the chaos." Lucy's laugh was bitter this time. "Right? Because foster care is such a dream." Emma didn't know what to say. The air between them was heavy. Then Lucy stepped aside. "Come in. I want to hear everything." They sat across from each other at a small dining table. The walls were bare except for a few framed quotes and a shelf of books. A cat slept on the couch, twitching in a dream. Emma told her everything. About the letters, the tape, the basement, their mother's pain. Mark's silence. Lucy listened, arms crossed, eyes scanning every word like she was trying to read between the lines. When Emma finished, Lucy was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "So, you got the family, the house, the holidays, and I got bounced between strangers until I aged out." "I didn't know," Emma whispered. "I know you didn't. That's the worst part. None of this is your fault, but I still want to scream." Emma nodded. "You can. If it helps, scream at me. I'd rather you hate me than never know me." Lucy shook her head. "I don't hate you. I just don't know where to put you yet." "That's fair." They sat in silence again, but this time it felt different. Like a door had opened, even just a crack. Lucy stood and walked to a box near the window. She pulled out a faded photo album. "The foster family that kept me the longest, 2 years, they gave me this when I left. Said I should keep the good parts." She opened it to a picture of herself at age 4, wearing oversized sunglasses and holding a popsicle. A woman with kind eyes crouched behind her. They weren't perfect, but they tried. Emma smiled. "You were adorable." Lucy smirked. "Still am." They both laughed. The tension eased, if only slightly. Then Lucy asked, "So what now? You just wanted to meet me?" Emma hesitated. "I want you to be part of my life, if you want that too. But there's no pressure. We could take it slow. Or just talk sometimes. I don't want to force anything. Lucy looked at her, expression unreadable. Then she said, one condition. Anything. Tell me what Mom was like. Not the version in letters. The real one. Emma's chest tightened. She was warm when she let herself be, but sad. Like something broke inside her. And she never figured out how to fix it. She made pancakes every Saturday. She sang along to Fleetwood Mac. She never told me she loved me, but she brushed my hair like it was a ritual. Lucy looked away, blinking fast. Thanks, she said softly. Emma reached into her bag and pulled out a copy of the family photo, the one with their mom in the field of wildflowers. She slid it across the table. She wanted you to have this. Lucy took it, her fingers tracing their mother's smile. She looks like me. You look like her. They didn't hug. Not yet. But something in the room shifted. An invisible thread tied between two people who had been alone too long. As Emma stood to leave, Lucy said, I'll call you. Maybe next week. Don't get weird about it. Emma smiled. I won't. Back in her car, she exhaled. For the first time since her father's death, she didn't feel lost. She felt connected. Part 5, The Confrontation. Emma didn't expect the memorial to turn into a battlefield. It was meant to be simple. A quiet family service at the old church, a few speeches, a scattering of ashes near the river. Richard Holloway hadn't wanted anything grand. But what he left behind, intentionally or not, was far from peaceful. She hadn't told anyone what she'd discovered. Not yet. Not Daniel, her brother, who now stood at the front of the church delivering a stiff eulogy about a man of discipline, of principles, of great silence. Not Aunt Karen, who whispered through tears about how Emma looked just like her mother. And definitely not the dozen cousins, uncles, and neighbors who filled the pews out of respect or curiosity. Lucy sat near the back, wearing a black dress and holding the photo Emma had given her in her lap. No one knew who she was. Yet, Emma's palms were sweating. Her father's tape echoed in her head. I knew about Mark. I raised you anyway. She had come back to this town searching for answers. But now, she realized, she'd also come for something else. Justice. Not the angry, explosive kind, but the truth spoken aloud. Finally. When Daniel called her up to speak, Emma rose slowly, every step toward the altar feeling like a climb. She faced the crowd, cleared her throat, and began. My father was a complicated man. He built homes for a living, but he never made ours feel easy. I didn't understand him when I was younger. I thought he didn't love me the way he should have. I thought he was cold, distant, unreachable. And maybe he was. She paused, scanning the faces. Daniel's eyes narrowed. But now I know the truth. He made a choice, a hard one. He chose to raise me as his own, even knowing I wasn't his by blood. He stayed. He protected me from the kind of chaos that could have shattered a child. Whispers rippled through the church. Emma took a breath. My biological father is Mark Holloway, his brother. My mother had an affair. A long one. She had me. And my father, the man we're honoring today, never told a soul. He carried that weight in silence. Not out of pride, but out of love. Daniel stood up sharply. Emma, what are you doing? Emma turned to him. I'm telling the truth. This isn't the time. It's the only time, she said, voice rising. You deserve to know. We all do. Because for years, we sat around dinner tables pretending things were fine, while everyone suffered in silence. The room fell still. Emma continued. He wasn't perfect. He hurt people. He shut down. But he also gave me a life. And I won't let that go unspoken. Daniel stepped forward, his voice tight. So what, you find out some secret and think you can rewrite everything? You didn't even come to the funeral. Emma stared at him. Because I was angry, confused. But now I understand. I'm not trying to erase him, Daniel. I'm trying to see him for who he really was. Daniel's jaw clenched. You could have told me privately. I could have. But this family doesn't do private. We do silence. We bury the truth with the bodies. That shut him up. Emma's gaze swept across the church again. I also want to introduce someone. She nodded toward the back. Lucy stood slowly. This is Lucy Owens. She's my sister. And yours. Gasped. Murmurs. Aunt Karen's hand flew to her mouth. Emma added gently, she didn't ask for any of this. Neither did I. Neither did our parents, really. They just made choices they thought would protect us. But protection without truth is just another form of abandonment. Lucy joined her at the front. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Emma turned to the congregation one last time. I'm not asking anyone to pretend this isn't hard, but I am asking you to let it be real. Let this be the beginning of something honest. Because for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. She stepped down. No applause. No shouting. Just a quiet shift. Like the House of Secrets was finally beginning to crack. Letting the light in. Part 6. The House We Built. 6 months later, the Holloway house no longer looked abandoned. The chipped paint was gone, replaced by a soft cream color. The porch had been rebuilt, the roof patched, the ivy trimmed back. Not completely removed, but tamed, like a memory honored rather than erased. The lawn was green again, a garden blooming at its edges. Emma stood on the porch, holding a clipboard and watching the delivery truck back into the driveway. Inside were secondhand beds, dressers, and boxes of books. Donations. From friends. From strangers. From people who had heard her story after it spread through town. Whispers turning into warmth. It wasn't just her house anymore. It was becoming a refuge. A transitional home for single mothers, women escaping cycles of silence and sacrifice. The kind of place her own mother might have needed. The kind of place Lucy never had. Emma had used her inheritance to start the project. Not out of guilt, but purpose. She didn't want to carry the past like a wound. She wanted to build something from it. Lucy walked out onto the porch, holding 2 mugs of coffee. Her hair was tied up, paint on her jeans, and a spark in her eyes Emma was finally beginning to recognize as joy. They brought the bookshelves too, Lucy said, and a box labeled Lego and Chaos. Should I be concerned? Emma smiled. Depends on how many wheels are in there. They clinked mugs. You think Mom would have liked this? Lucy asked quietly. Emma looked around, the soft hum of drills in the distance, the smell of wood and earth and fresh paint. I think she would have stood right here and cried, then complained about the curtains. Lucy laughed. Sounds right. They sat on the porch swing, watching the sun creep over the roof. You know, Lucy said, when I first met you, I thought you were the luckiest girl alive. Big house, family, opportunities. But now I see we both grew up in cages. Just different kinds. Emma nodded. You had chaos. I had silence. And now? Lucy asked. Emma exhaled. Now we have a choice. They sipped in silence for a moment. A bird landed on the railing. Somewhere inside, a hammer dropped, followed by a chorus of children's laughter. 2 boys helping their mom paint a wall, giggling every time they missed and hit each other instead. Lucy stood up and stretched. Want to help me set up the first bedroom? You mean argue over the lamp placement? Obviously. They walked back inside, where sunlight streamed through the windows. The walls were still bare, but full of potential. In the hallway, a new photo hung near the staircase. It wasn't of the past. Not their parents, not Mark, not even Emma as a child. It was a recent photo. Emma and Lucy, side by side, painting the porch. Hair a mess, clothes covered in dust. Smiling. It was the first frame in what they called the new wall.
No secrets.
No lies. Just stories they chose to tell. Before heading upstairs, Emma paused at the base of the stairway and touched the old banister. She thought about Richard, her father, in every way that mattered. About his silence, his sacrifices. The love he never found the words for. I forgive you, she whispered, and she meant it. Outside, the wind carried the scent of lilacs. The trees swayed gently, like the house itself was breathing again. Alive. The end.